understand that you have regular catch-ups with the team. You have these one-on-one catch-ups with every member of Plus Narrative. What is the purpose of these catch-ups, and how often do you have them?
I'm not personally having regular one-on-one meetings with each person on the team. I have irregular one-on-ones with as many people on the team as I possibly can cover. As we reached over 20 people, that's become more and more difficult. But what we do is we have team leads and we have other directors, alongside me, and we'll run what we call a one-on-one meeting with each person on the team, preferably once a week. There's some sort of engagement. We use a piece of software called Know Your Team. It's a really great tool. It's led by a very helpful person named Claire Liu. She's helped me quite a lot with just managerial consistency across the team, the way we manage people, the way we lead people in the organization. And in most organizations, what I've found, to speak directly to why one-on-ones, is people don't engage with each other on a human level. The majority of the questions people are asked on a day-to-day basis are purely operational. They're purely project-based. And, whether it's in this industry, in terms of, digital studio, user experience, or technology, or any other industry, the best way to, I'd say, get insights from people and to understand people and to engage with a team is to have direct communication. And that's not always possible in large groups or even in small groups. And one of the ways you really can build trust is by having structured, planned out conversations one-on-one, where you talk about that individual's growth path. You speak about that individual on a development level. Like, how are they growing in the organization? How are we preparing them to the point where we cannot possibly help them to grow any further, and we'd actually have to help them to move on. That's really important to us. How can we help people in their careers to progress and to grow? And so one-on-one is a context session for that. It's essentially just a platform for discussion. We have some really great agenda setting that's done directly on Know Your Team. Claire and her team have on Know Your Team. Claire and her team have, I find them to be super helpful when I'm speaking to a team member, because they'll be focused on one particular topic, whether it's the fact that you have transitioned to remote work, in our team, or whether it's the first time you're ever engaging with somebody as a team member. What do you discuss? What are the topics? What are the questions? They've addressed a lot of that, at least the critical mass of the sort of questions that you might ask. And then you can obviously use the platform to prepare your own agendas too, which a lot of our team does. And I found that to be a really helpful way of running a one-on-one session. And usually we don't talk operations, just to make it clear. We don't talk projects in those sessions. We talk about the health of the organization, the health of that person, the mistakes made, good things, progress, failures. How can we learn from them, and non-operational, discussions about growth.
Okay. I feel that, and perhaps I'm wrong, but when you look at something as big as career growth, that is not something that necessarily changes on a week-to-week basis. So where I am mentally right now, or even operationally right now, could still look very much the same next week. So how do you ensure that these sessions continue to really give value to each person that's involved?
Absolutely. Yeah, so very good point. I would say I'm probably mistaken to like double down on how the sessions are all about career growth. They're not necessarily. They very much are. They're actually often about what we as managers or leaders should be improving. So the type of questions we're often asking are not just career orientated. Those sort of questions, career orientated questions, would happen perhaps once a month, once a quarter, going into a deeper dive of development and growth with an individual. On a week-to-week basis, what we're often talking about is, how often would you like feedback? How am I giving you feedback that's not currently working? What could I potentially improve on as a manager? Myself as a CEO, I'm often asking the team, when I do get to engage, with people who don't report directly to me, how clear am I making the vision of the organization? I've got some very meaningful feedback from our team, and criticism, which is super helpful for me, because it obviously helps me to grow as an individual too, and to change strategy, to change the approach, because we all have the same objectives, and in the end. So not always about career guidance, not always about growth, as an individual, but more often than not, it's contextual, based on where that person is at, where your relationship with that person is at, the level of trust and the level of discussion you can have. And then, secondly, it's actually very often about how I might be able to improve as a manager, as an individual. So let's say you were running a one-on-one, just to make it, a little bit more a little bit clearer. If you were running a one-on-one with a content producer from the team, you would ask questions like, is there anything that I'm currently doing that might be holding you back? So that you can get an honest answer. And if you set the right context for that, if you already have your health in the organization, that's when you might get the honest answers that you're looking for. And if you pick up that you're not, quite getting that, then something else that you might need to work on in terms of trust and building a relationship with that person.
Absolutely. It's something that I think you'd shared in Slack the other day, was that kindness and honesty are not mutually exclusive. So I imagine that these are opportunities to be able to have those conversations, and the people involved in those conversations know that they can say the things that they want to say and express themselves without feeling that they're going to have any repercussions for it, or just they can be truly honest with you. And I think that that's really important. How do the people involved in these discussions with you, how does our team benefit? So what are they getting out of it?
Well, first of all, they're getting your undivided attention as a leader. How often are we able to actually do that? In a fast-paced environment where you're essentially moving from one task to another, sometimes trying to do more than one at a time, which, obviously our brains can't do. I'd love to talk about that in another session. So we're trying to multitask, probably unsuccessfully, and we're not giving our team, the people on our team, enough of our, undivided attention. So, that's one thing that I think is underrated. Everybody needs it, in the end. They need to know that you actually do have their back and that you're listening. So that's, step one as a leader, what you can provide them. I think another benefit that they're potentially getting is the opportunity to raise issues and things that are potentially annoying them about your management style. So again, let's say you're meeting with a content producer and you're saying to them, as part of my team, I would like to know how you want to receive feedback. So, what's the best way to give you feedback? What's the best way to give you criticism? What's something that I've done in the last few weeks, that's rubbed you up the wrong way, or not necessarily gotten the best out of you? Being able to voice that and being listened to instead of defended, that's a different story. Being listened to in that context, I think, is so valuable. And when you provide somebody a platform to be able to give you feedback, not just on yourself but on the organization, what you're essentially saying is, we actually care about what you have to say. You see these organizations around the world who essentially say they have a lack of engagement, a lack of people who care and are meaningfully engaged every single day. And whether that's because that person doesn't identify with the role they're in or doesn't see purpose in what they're doing, whatever the reasons behind that are, because I'm sure that there could be a number of them, something that you can do by giving somebody the right attention, by asking the question, is you can actually demonstrate that we care about what you have to say. Because I'm pretty certain that most people in the world would engage more if they knew their opinion was actually valued. So in this sort of context, that the way that we like to run these sort of sessions with project teams or with areas of the business like the development team, as individuals, what we're essentially saying is we want to know what you think, and that includes even saying, what would you like to add to the agenda? 9 times out of 10 when I go into a one-on-one, I don't know exactly what I want out of that one-on-one. I'm there to serve that other person, and putting in that context, saying, I'm here for you. What would you like to prepare in advance of this session? What would you like to ask me? What do you want me to ask you? You're essentially saying, I actually care about your opinion.
So it seems that as long as both parties are joining the conversation with an open mind and this attitude of understanding that this is the time to share and be honest and give feedback, when do these feedback sessions stop serving a purpose?
Yeah, so I would say, a one-on-one isn't necessarily the right way to run every meeting in an organization. So it's not the same as an operational meeting. So that's one, area where I'd say it's much less valuable. Operational meetings like a scrum or a facilitated workshop, if they run, exceptionally well, they do engage a team around a specific purpose, around a problem to be solved, or a product build, or operationally minded context. When it comes to a one-on-one, that's you're not going to get that out of a one-on-one. At least if you're running a one-on-one the way that we categorize one, the way that we define one. When you have them too often, you're potentially running out of things to ask and to learn from each other. If you've got a very high amount of trust with somebody, meeting with them once every 2 weeks, I find to be more than enough. But if you don't, you probably need to engage that person more often. A lot of managers, the first thing they say is, how am I going to fit this in? And I understand that. If you've got a really busy work schedule, there's actually potential that your team is not taking enough off of your plate as a manager, because your job description is essentially to help them to achieve their goals. It's not necessarily to achieve executional goals 24/7.